Coming up, what an excellent day for bridges. Well, howdy folks, and welcome to Minute 81 of the Exorcist Minute, a show where we endeavor to examine, extrapolate, and excavate The Exorcist, minute by terrifying minute. My name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Keenan Diaz.
And we'll be your holy guides on this journey through what some have called the scariest movie of all time. All right, so our minute begins with Karis fishing for a cigarette.
And it ends with Chris saying, oh.
And folks, I want to open this minute with another reading, picking up right where we left off. So here we go. A reading from the Book of Blatty. Got a cigarette, Father? He reached into the pocket of his shirt. Can you go non-filter? Right now I'd smoke rope. He tapped out a Camel from the packet. On my allowance, I frequently do. Vow of poverty, she murmured as she slipped out the cigarette, smiling tightly. A vow of poverty has uses, he commented, reaching in his pocket for matches. Like what? Makes rope taste better? Again, a half smile as he watched her hand holding the cigarette. It trembled. He saw the cigarette wavering in quick, erratic jumps, and without pausing, he took it from her fingers and put it up to his mouth. He lit it. His hands cupped around the match. He puffed, gave the cigarette back to Chris, his eyes on the cars passing over the bridge. Lot easier. Breeze from the traffic, he told her. Thanks, Father. Chris looked at him appraisingly, with gratitude, even with hope. She knew what he'd done. She watched as he lit up a Camel for himself. He forgot to cup his hands. As he exhaled, they each leaned an elbow on the parapet. Where are you from, Father Karis? Originally? New York. Me too. Wouldn't ever go back, though, would you? Karis fought down the rise in his throat. No, I wouldn't. He forced a smile. But I didn't have to make those decisions. God, I'm dumb. You're a priest. You have to go where they send you. That's right. How'd a shrink ever get to be a priest? She asked. He was anxious to know what the urgent problem was that she'd mentioned when she telephoned. She was feeling her way, he sensed. Toward what? He must not prod. It would come. It would come. It's the other way around, he corrected her gently. The Society... Who? The Society of Jesus. Jesuit is short for that. Oh, I see. The Society sent me through medical school and through psychiatric training. Oh, where? Oh, well, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Bellevue. He was suddenly aware that he wanted to impress her. Why, he wondered, and immediately saw the answer in the slums of his boyhood, in the balconies of theaters on the Lower East Side. Little Dimmy with a movie star. Not bad, she said appraisingly, nodding her head. We don't make vows of mental poverty. She sensed an irritation, shrugged, turned front facing out to the river. Look, it's just that I don't know you, and... She dragged on the cigarette, long and deep, and then exhaled, crushing out the butt on the parapet. You're a friend of Father Dyer, is that right? Yes, I am. Pretty close? Pretty close. Did he talk about the party? At your house? At my house? Yes. He said you seemed human. She missed it, or ignored it. Did he talk about my daughter? No, I didn't know you had one. She's 12. He didn't mention her? No. Yeah, I wanted to read that one, folks, mostly for the little thing with the cigarette, how he takes it from her shaking hands and makes the excuse that, though, the wind is making it hard to light. And then he lights his own and he forgets to cup his hands. It's another nice little touch, I think.
I like from this reading how, one of the things a novel can do, because a film is performative and you have to rely entirely on subtext, is that a novel can put us in the mind of both characters at the same time. So we could see how they're misunderstanding each other, or how, okay, as Karis, I'm going to do this to help you. And then as Chris, I'm going to completely misread that.
Right.
That's just not how plays and movies work.
Yeah. But yeah, like the book and the movie are pretty similar here on the surface, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, Keenan, it almost feels like to me that Friedkin's version is the more emotional and Blatty's is the more technical, right? Like I'm impressed by the dialogue and the exchange between Chris and Karis in the book. I'm impressed, like on a technical level. But Friedkin is able to get a similar feeling with less words and just a few shots of these two actors. And they are bringing their own emotions and their own way of carrying those emotions to the scene in a way that is natural and truthful to screen Chris and screen Karis. And honestly, as much as I mourn the loss of some really snappy dialogue, I don't know if those same words would feel right in the filmed version of the scene, right? Like, Keenan, we know that Blatty wrote the screenplay as well. What does that look like at this point?
So in our version of the script that is from December of 72, it is pretty close to the film version.
Okay.
So we have just a little bit of, at the very beginning of where Chris thinks that Karis is hitting on her or some weirdo, or he's a key moving creep.
Okay.
And then beyond that, it is much more pared down. There are fewer jokes. So it is almost the exact same as the movie. And I think that's potentially why the movie is so fraught. That's the word that I keep thinking about, like how fragile it is, right?
Yeah.
And how Chris could break at any time, it feels like. And
Mm-hmm,
seems more afraid of her falling apart on him.
Yeah.
So I think when it's pared down like that, we're like bringing in the emotional impact of how visceral the previous scene was, where she was forced to simulate oral sex on her daughter and her daughter's bloody wounds, and then is smacked across the floor and discovers her butler has been knocked unconscious, and all that kind of so we're still thinking about all that terrible stuff here,
right. And you can hear all of that in Ellen Burstyn's very small kind of like and tired, please go away, right? Like that's very audible versus if you had kind of like the film noir, and I'm thinking like even with like the saxophone in the back, it's like it seemed human.
Yeah, this is.
Really, I know that's wonderful. Not how Blatty's doing it, but
right. Yeah, it's really wonderful dialogue that you're talking about from Blatty's book. I think it's interesting. It puts us in the perspective of like Karis as someone who talks to people for a living, right? As a therapist and a priest, and like he's talking through his process, which is interesting. Of like,
yes,
okay, I could feel myself trying to get ahead and trying to get to the results, but remember the process is
right.
It will come out. Like you don't have to ask that question. She will answer it for you.
Yes.
Later on, right? And I'm someone, part of my job at school is I interview people. I'll bring in industry guests, and I've tried to develop those types of skills. It's interesting to hear, go back to your training, Garris. I think don't get too emotional here. Think about this, but again, in a movie, we don't necessarily have time for insights into process like internal processes, and then we don't necessarily need it. We still get the fraught emotionality of it.
Exactly. Yes.
I'll think of a synonym for fraught, but that's what I keep thinking here.
Synonym for fraught. Yeah. Frankenstein. So actually, thank you, Keenan. Yes. One thing I also wanted to talk about here is the use, both in the book and the movie, of a bridge, and how that can be symbolic of a bunch of things. Remember, folks, we just got done with a long and arduous Act 1, and we are now standing on this bridge halfway between two sides of this river, right? So there's that, certainly, right? The beginning of a new act, a new chapter. Actually, the University of Michigan's fantasy and science fiction website has a dictionary of symbolism with an entry on bridges that I want to read here. So it says, the bridge is inherently symbolic of communication and union, whether it be between heaven and earth, or two distinct realms. For this reason, it can be seen as the connection between God and man. It may be the passage to reality, or merely a symbol for travel and crossing. In dreams, a bridge symbolizes the passage from one state to another higher one, like an ascension. It is the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. In many cultures, it is the link between what can be perceived and what is beyond perception, or at least a change or desire for change. It can be a test to see who is brave, who will cross. Interesting. So honestly, I don't think there's a single thing mentioned in that paragraph that doesn't apply here. It fits perfectly with everything that's happening in this story and what this story is about, like right down to the communication and union between heaven and earth, right? Remember, folks, those 6 themes that I put out there at the beginning of this podcast, right? Doubt, isolation, despair, and then we have our good ones, conviction, communion, and hope, right? Both of our characters have been suffering alone, and now they find each other on this bridge, communication and also communion. And then Karis himself being this bridge, this connection between God and man, heaven and earth, right? Not just in his job as a priest and a psychiatrist, but also in his own personal life, his own personal struggle with faith, right? This can also be seen as a crossing of the threshold for Karis, right? Which again is happening relatively late in this movie, even though it's usually early on in the traditional like hero journey. But Karis is leaving the world that he knows and entering into something that he has never experienced before.
Right. The crossing of the first threshold is a way that people talk about Joseph Campbell's paradigm and screenwriting structure. So that is the bridge between Act 1 and Act 2. So again, another idea that this would be Act 2 rather than deep into Act 2 already.
Right. And remember, folks, the dictionary also said that it can be a passage to reality. And I thought this one was interesting because up to this point, Karis's faith is based on hypotheticals, ideas, thoughts, and feelings which contrast with what he actually sees in the world. They're pretty thoughts which he's not even sure he believes in, right? His faith is almost as academic as his psychiatry. But crossing this bridge, this passage to reality, he is going to come face to face with an actual demon, and his faith will be tested. It also says a bridge is the link between what can be perceived and what is beyond perception. He is going to start questioning whether what he is seeing, what he is hearing, is actually real. It's the quote from the beginning of this part, actually, in Blatty's book, right? It says, "You do not believe, although you have seen," John 6, verses 36 to 37, right? But ultimately, hopefully, this is an ascension for him, right? That passage from one state to a higher one, which bridges also symbolize, right? And remember, Friedkin uses that too. He remarks that his characters are always ascending in this movie, right? Answering a call, stepping up to face something. Even in the beginning of this scene, before Karis gets to the bridge, we got him walking up the road towards us, and because of the angle, it looks like he's coming up out of the ground, right? Where he has spent so much of his time. But now he is rising. He is rising to the challenge, rising to the rescue of this mother and her daughter. Great stuff.
That's interesting. I like what you're talking about here about, Karis, for him, it's become academic or theoretical, I suppose, right? Like the idea of God and God's existence. For Blatty to quote, right, this sequence, these series of quotes from John is about a lot of things, but it's also about not believing, seeing Jesus walking on water. Is that right? Yeah,
like exactly. Actually seeing like the reality of it. It's like,
what else like that? So I don't want to paraphrase your Lord, right? But he's like, I just.
Plenty of Christians have already done that, Keenan.
Right, but it's much more elegant with the actual quote than Blatty. But like I just walked across water, right? Like literally just a second ago. And so like, what other sign are you looking for here, right? So that's interesting because like as you're changing my interpretation of the film as we've done this podcast partially because you read the book and partially because you're a Christian, but like the idea of like Karis having to Karis seeing the demon will be his seeing Jesus walk on water moment. Right?
Yes, precisely. Yeah.
Yeah, that is actually like he will see it. He's going to deny it still, even though it's directly in his face. And then ultimately, when he recognizes that it's real, right? When he does recognize that, that's the end of the movie.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Sorry.
No. That's the. I mean, and I can't wait until we get to it, folks. But no, like one of the demons' like main barbs at Karis is. It's like you think you don't believe because you haven't seen miracles yet.
Right.
You say that, but like I'm showing you miracles, dude, and you still don't believe. The problem isn't the absence of miracles. The problem is you. Yeah, and I love that. It's like even when I and what does he say? It's like, yeah, no, nothing would work on you. There's not a single miracle that would actually make you believe.
That's interesting. Yeah, because some of what Karis has been going through is like he's blaming God for not being visible, right? Like it's God's fault that he doesn't believe. Like God, like who God is testing, and why would you test if you're so powerful and all of that stuff. Yeah.
There's a moment in the book where like he's desperately praying and he says like just please just come to me in dreams, just like show me, just give me a sign, right? He's begging for a sign, and then the demon gives him all of these signs, and if that's really all it took, then he would be fine. But no, then the problem is much deeper then.
Right. And to go back to the Faust trap for a second, which we had done before.
The Faust trap. Okay, here we go.
Do we have Faust music?
We do.
Oh, good.
And it's different from. So it would be the Marlowe.
We have Marlowe trap. Yes.
So we have Marlowe music, which is different from Shakespeare music.
Oh,
yes.
Thank God.
Wouldn't be able to do another single episode of this thing if the Marlowe music and the Shakespeare music were the same.
We don't want to get involved in that fandom's their debates or anything.
Yeah.
We don't like to go to Marlowe-Con. Dress as a Shakespearean character and have them look at us. Oh God. Yeah.
That'd be like going to Star Wars Con dressed as a Spock.
Right, exactly. Right.
Who's this Mephistopheles guy? Get this.
Yeah, get this guy. You show up as Mercutio instead of Mephistopheles.
Who's this, Iago? God.
Yeah, but in Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, right? Mephistopheles gives Faust the power of reality. Essentially, he gives him all the Infinity Stones.
Right.
I'm trying to trick the kids into thinking
making
Marlowe is cool. Yeah. He gives him all the Infinity Stones. He's able to conjure Helen of Troy. He's able to learn all the knowledge there is, everything, and still Marlowe feels, or not Marlowe. Faustus, Dr. Faustus, he feels unfulfilled. And he's like, well, this is sort of proving to me that there isn't a God. And Mephistopheles mocks him similarly, and is like this is the proof that there is God. I've given you the powers of God. Essentially, that is proof that God is real. And the problem is in you, right? The problem isn't in God's ability to reach you. Like there's nothing that would ever convince you because you're broken.
Yes, and that is why I wanted to bring the book into this thing. I know this is a Movies by Minute podcast, and we're examining the movie The Exorcist, but that is a side of the demon, much like Mephistopheles in Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, where it's almost like he's angry at Faustus for being unworthy. It's like, no, the problem is you. Like, look at all of this stuff. Like, almost as if he's speaking on God's behalf. It's like, I don't know why God loves you. Look at you. Look at all of your flaws. Look at all of your inconsistencies. Like what? Like, and you're the ones that we're supposed to. Yeah. Like I love that side of our Captain Howdy. And again, maybe I'm putting that into our Captain Howdy because I've read other things. But that remains to be seen as we go through this and we take a closer look at it.
Well, Lester, you have become a real film student because, as I say here at UNLV Film to my students, only film students apologize for doing research. They think it's like cheating somehow to bring in other texts and other things that they've read and other like they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I looked this up. They literally say this, like, I'm sorry, I looked this up.
I'm sorry, Professor Keenan. I apologize. I learned French.
But they literally
so that I could get a better understanding of this film.
They're like, oh, I don't mean to do this, but I read the source material. It's like, well, why is that a wrong thing? Like, why is that opinion not valid for whatever reason? Like, yeah. Anyway, so yes, congratulations, you've graduated.
Congratulations.
Now. But I like your research here, your homework with this online. What was the symbolism of dictionary? I'm sorry. No, wait. What was it? The dictionary of symbolism. The symbolism.
Now, dictionaries usually symbolize.
I've never had a dream where I dream about a dictionary, so I would love to know what a dictionary means.
What the hell does that mean? Yeah. I know. Yeah, the Dictionary of Symbolism.
There we go.
From the University of Michigan. No, not the University. Yeah, Michigan. Yeah.
Well, no, that's really interesting. So I'm not an expert on Jung and Freud, or you. I mean, is that something that you've read a lot about?
In college.
Okay, yeah. So you might, So there are people who are way, way more steeped in it than I am, Jungian archetypes and Freudian paradigms and all of that. But just a brief overview. We talked about this a little bit before about like dream analysis and that sort of idea. But like Jung took Freud's ideas, and again, like Freud and Jung were talking about this as scientists, and then their work has been debunked, right? Like scientifically, but because the ideas that they were professing were not scientific, they're not testable. How do you test what something means in a dream? That's untestable. But so we still use it a lot in literary studies, though, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, and so in screenwriting, it is sort of built into how we think about screenwriting structure in a way that we don't necessarily connect them with Jungian archetypes. Like we will talk about refusal of the call to adventure and, crossing the first threshold and all that stuff that we used from the hero's journey. But the hero's journey idea from Joseph Campbell is Jungian at its like base,
Right.
because we're dealing with archetypes. And so Jung would, he talked about primordial images, which then became archetypes. He adapted them later to the idea of archetypes. And the idea was that, like, there are things that are inherent in our biology that are like locks waiting for keys. So there are these things in us that we will, once we encounter something in our real lives that matches that lock, they'll feel incredibly impactful to us. So the idea of like, okay, it's inherent in us through what he called the collective unconscious, right? Like that, like our ideas of motherhood are inherent in us. And so then for most of us, we see our ideas of motherhood reflected in our mother, and it hits us in that emotional way. Like we are evolutionarily designed to wait for mothering, sweet, nurturing femininity. Right. And then when that happens, we go, that's what I needed. Right. So then in stories, he argues similarly. And if you're like, this all sounds like bullshit. Yeah, sure. but like in stories, similarly, he argues like there are ways that we like, what is a villain like? What is a love interest like? And that they are inherent in us. And we're waiting for the stimuli out there that hits us in just those ways. So that's what he was calling the archetypes. Right.
Yes.
So a bridge archetype, a bridge image is like we've just been waiting for that in our body somewhere.
Right. And even if we don't consciously recognize it, right, there is like a part of our makeup, right? Some cells, somewhere in a corner of our jelly little brain, is going to like react to that. And it's like, oh, a bridge.
Yeah, there's a bridge. Exactly. A bridge must mean this because in my everyday life when I'm on a bridge, this is what it feels like to me, and so this matches that story idea. And again, it's an unscientific idea, even though we Jung and Jungian people talk about it. I'm trying not to insult them, but it's unscientific because it can't be tested. We cannot, right? But there are similar ideas that, again, they're on the verge of trying to test, like the idea of like aesthetically why we respond to blue and green as being calming might have to do more with the fact that like evolutionarily we have been trained isn't the word, but we have conditioned is a scientific word that means something, right? We have evolved to understand that like blue landscapes and green landscapes are safer or have more health to them, or are places where we can find food, and so like
more fertile,
and water and plant
water,
life. And so so the cool colors tend to be calmer for us as opposed to the warm colors, which suggest evolutionarily places that we would have to be struggling through more.
Right. Something is desolate. Something is without growing things, or
on fire.
It's on fire. Yeah.
Right. So again, that's not necessarily testable, and they've been trying to find the verges of how to test that kind of thing out. So right now they are pseudoscientific. And the trouble with Freud and Jung is that they were so ahead of their time and talking about things and made claims that were not scientific, but they were saying they were science, so that when they were debunked, science went into a pretty hard direction against them, right? They were like, this is just religion with another name for it.
Yeah.
But in literature, we don't give a shit. Give it to us. It's wonderful. We love it.
Yes. It's like whatever it is in the scientific world, it is really fun to like analyze and play with.
Incredibly useful stuff, right?
Yeah. After lighting the cigarette for Chris, he tries to initiate conversation. He knows that she wants to talk to him about something, but I think he can see that she needs a little bit more time, like we were looking at in the book.
Right.
So he looks up to the sky and he says, cold. They begin to walk, and Chris makes an attempt at conversation as well. She asks, how did a shrink ever get to be a priest? And as she's talking, she's constantly fidgeting with her coat, her scarf, her glasses, like making sure that she is covered, making sure she is concealed. And by doing that, our eyes keep going back to the edge of those glasses and the beginnings of whatever that is under them. What is that? What is going on under those glasses? I know. This
right.
Is
right. But this is our Funko Pop Chris, right? This is the design of her, like covered up in big movie star glasses. And we are just so wondering, and that scarf, wondering what's going on under there.
Yeah. So Karras actually says it's the other way around. The Society of Jesus, right, the Jesuits, sent him through medical school. And as they talk, they're walking closer and closer to us, as if we are on that bridge and they're passing us. Now, we get another cut. Chris is not quite ready to say what she wants to say. Instead, she pursues. She's like, oh, where? And Karras says Harvard, Bellevue, Johns Hopkins, places like that.
Yeah. And then we don't have the part where he says, I'm trying to impress her, which is interesting.
Right.
Here, I don't know if I get that he is trying to impress her. He sounds very matter of fact.
Yeah.
But that brings up an interesting question, Lester, because we've been to Bellevue.
Yes.
That's where his mother was. So he is saying that he did what's part of his residency or part of his training at Bellevue, which is super interesting when we think about back to that scene where it seems we sort of came to this conclusion. It seems like he's trying not to show that he's a doctor there or a priest, right?
Right.
So he's also trying to pretend that, like, you know, like I worked at Target for about 12 years. I don't know if I've talked to you about this. So like, I think I'm finally getting to the point where, like, now it's been such a long time that I don't know how things work at Target anymore. So I couldn't, but you go in there and like, oh, I know exactly what this is and all the things behind the scenes. And like when you go, I've been to Disneyland with people who work at Disneyland and they're like, and behind this. And so he's trying he must be doing that too at Bellevue, which we hadn't thought about.
Yeah.
Like, I know exactly where all this stuff is. And he's leading Uncle Tito, Uncle John, down that hallway
right.
because he's worked there.
Yeah. Oh, and not only that, Keenan, but that just made me realize how much more awful that is.
Oh, no. Sorry.
Because that's a place that I don't know why, and maybe you can help me, but I don't know why that's more awful, but a place that he has worked at, a place that he's probably overseen that same room.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's a big...
With all of those people, like shuffling around in there,
right.
And now one of those people is his mom.
Right.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but
I thought we had gotten away from this, Keenan.
That's our least favorite scene. Yeah, but I'd be interested now to think about that and go back and look and like, yeah, because he's walking around like we don't have a nurse showing him around or anything. He's walking around. He goes to that place and then he's like, okay, I know where this is.
He knows exactly where to go.
He's like, hey, but he doesn't like, hey, I know exactly where to go. I've worked here. He doesn't want to lead that on, but he's like, hello, this is who I am. Yeah. He doesn't say I'm Father Damien. He doesn't say I'm Dr. Karras. He's just like,
right. Oh my God, yeah. And but just like I can see that it's like because and I'm not speaking for I know that I'm not saying that doctors and nurses treat patients like implements of their job, but now I'm thinking about Karras working with these patients in here, and like now one of them is his mom.
But they do have to treat them like implements of their job to some extent because otherwise they would not
to do a good job.
Yeah, they would not. How could you say, hey, I have to go and talk to someone else now, right? You would just sit by one patient's side for your whole shift and deal with them.
For the entire time, yeah.
Right, yeah. You have to treat them like, okay, these are lines on a to-do list. These are pips. These are, like, you have to.
Boxes to check.
Boxes to check. I was going to say, like, bosses in a video game, which is, I think, like how, I don't know, I think a lot of people our age and younger think like that, like dividing tasks into like video game-ified sort of ideas.
This is a mini boss. This is
and it is unhealthy.
A side quest.
Exactly. It's unhealthy, and when you're talking about human beings again. But I think you have to have some kind of compartmentalization, or else you would just go crazy.
Right, just so that you can perform your job to the best of your abilities.
Exactly.
And I think we talked about that when we had Teeny Tiny Tanny on the screen, and his reflective glasses making it look like he has no emotion, but like maybe that's what he needs.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, sorry to take us back to Bellevue and all that terrible stuff.
Oh boy, yeah. We didn't do it. It was Karras. It was Karras' fault. He mentioned it.
This damn bridge. The bridge goes both ways, folks.
Oh God. Yeah. But yeah, so now they have reached the other side of this bridge and they begin to descend. They descend back to Earth. Chris clutches the railing with one hand. The other is stuffed in the pocket of her coat. Both of Karras' hands are in his pockets, right? They're not yet sure of each other. Neither one is ready to open up, right? Even the stairway seems to like separate them with a line, right? Him on one side and her on the other. Another cut. You're a friend of Father Dyer's, right? Yes, I am. Pretty close. Pretty close. Did he talk to you about my party? Now, up to this point, the conversation has been pretty much like this, right? They're both wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
In Chris's case, it's almost literal as well, with the glasses and the scarf, right? Karras is polite. He is friendly, even gentle in his answers, right? But also, he's not letting anything slip through until, did he talk to you about my party? And again, we see this smile on his face, right? It's small this time, just a smile of remembrance, right? He says, he sure did. And then something happens. They are approaching this like wooden, not a pillar, like a support beam. It's in the foreground. It might not even be supporting anything. It might be a signpost. And they pass behind it and emerge on the other side with the asking and the answering of this question. About my daughter? No, I didn't know you had one. And there it is. Now they're on the other side. The conversation has passed from the land of small talk into more serious matters. Again, we got the camera putting things between us and the characters, right? And at this crucial, transformative moment, I love it. Now, Chris is surprised and a little confused. Like, he didn't mention her? No. To which Chris responds with a simple, oh.
I think it's really interesting that like they are having this misunderstanding, I think, about the party, right? So when she says, you know, let's do this actor's exercise. Like, I'm your acting coach here, Lester. Yeah. So you are playing Chris, right? And when you say my party, what are you thinking of?
I'm specifically thinking of Reagan peeing on the rug.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Yes. So it's this really interesting thing where so she's saying, did he tell you about my daughter peeing on my rug? Right? He's like, oh yeah. I heard about it, but that's not what he is responding to at all, right?
Right.
Because Father Dyer, it turns out, has kept that secret, and it's just mentioned the part about, oh, we stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning when we were on the piano.
I was playing doity toy.
Right. Everybody loved me. We talked about heaven, etc. Right. There was there's an astronaut and a senator, right? All sorts of crazy things, right? Yeah. So he's like, oh yeah, this infamous party, and she's like embarrassed about, obviously, right, because she thinks it's about the. And so, like, that's really wonderful. They're having this misunderstanding, and that the movie is trusting us that it's going to be okay that we have this misunderstanding about it.
Yeah. I really like that. Yeah, and this goes back to, I think we were talking about this in a previous minute, just about subtext and how you can say, like, yeah, did she did he tell you about my party? And we're not like, yeah, of course. She is not thinking, it's like, oh, did Father Dyer tell you about like what a great time we had at my party?
Right.
No.
But how great he was at the party.
Yeah.
Right?
He's thinking, or she's thinking specifically, like, did this information leak out? No, let me not say it.
Well, you did say it, Lester.
I did say it. And I hope you're happy. No. No, but did this info get out about my daughter peeing on the rug? All you have to do is say that party, right?
I wonder if she's embarrassed, obviously, right? Because probably Mary Jo and the senator, they've all said they've all gone around town talking, like, of course,
those are all like big people that would have connections, and it's like, yeah,
Washington society has been talking about this party, right? Because it's that has never happened before. This little girl says, "You're gonna die up there. Watch this." Da 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 da. Right.
I thought the straw hat was a little bit much. It was,
Yeah, and then so like she's probably she's probably hoping, right? He's like, did you hear about my party? And he's like, oh yeah, he told me about the party. And then she's like, well, then you see what I'm talking about, right?
In a way, so okay, now I think I see what you're getting at, Keenan. So rather than being embarrassed, like she's hoping that she doesn't have to explain more,
right?
Because she's like, oh, if you know about the party, then you know why I called you here.
My daughter's having these behavioral problems, right? And but he's like, oh yeah, hysterical. Right? Your party, great time, hysterical, wonderful thing, right?
So is that what you called me over here for?
Right.
And Chris is like, yes, Father Karras. It's like, so you want to invite me to your next party? What? No. It's like, I can play the piano too, you know.
Right.
I'm no Father Dyer, but let me tell you.
I can cut a rug.
Yeah.
Because it's been pissed on. Yeah. That's the Triumph the Insult comic dog version of The Exorcist, right?
Yep.
Great rug for me to piss on. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like you talked in the previous minute and said this was similar to the Kinderman Kara scene where they're sort of filling each other out, and that's about to ramp up in our next minutes. But I think it's really, really interesting to see where they put, the series of wrong feet that they get off on here, where they're like the misunderstanding of who is who. Like he's not dressed properly. You're right. She thinks that he's a psychiatrist who happens to be a priest when he's actually a priest who happens to be a psychiatrist.
Right,
and then this very strange misunderstanding here.
Oh, well, I didn't even clock any of that. Thank you for bringing that.
This is a complicated, and again, I think all the Exorcist is great, but I'm really drawn to just this straight drama that is just so well written, directed, shot, edited, performed. Just great scenes, even without the demon there.
Yeah. And and the demon stuff is pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. So that is all of my notes. Keenan, is there anything else we got?
Of course there is, Lester. You scamp.
Wait, what?
Lester, it's your birthday.
It's my birthday. I know. Of course I know.
Oh yeah. I'd be very concerned.
If I didn't know.
You didn't know it was your birthday. But happy birthday, Lester. Thank you for spending your time with us, doing this recording here for this show. And
yes. Thank you.
Happy birthday. Hope it's going really well. Sorry I can't be there with you since I'm sick.
Yeah.
But
we're still being safe, folks. But we decided, we'll still do the show. But yeah, we're just keeping everybody safe here.
Yeah, I just have a cold but it's like, yeah, I don't want to be around anybody for any of this ever again.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you what I have. It's disgusting. You've seen Reagan's
lips. That'd be the worst birthday present.
But Lester, just I want to appreciate everything you do for me, not just on the show, but since we're on the show, all of the work that you do behind the scenes, everything that's not literally just my voice talking here, Lester does. The music, the editing, the writing, the planning, everything is all Lester. So congratulations on everything we've got so far, and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you so much. This is bringing it back, Keenan, because you were you told that story on one of our previous minutes about when I was shooting and I did this in front of the camera.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Where you surprised me with my birthday. That's one of my favorite birthday memories.
Oh, well, folks, from all of us to all of you, happy birthday. I didn't know how to end that.
Right, that's the ultimate, enjoy your movie. Oh, thanks. You too. Oh.
You too. Oh. But yeah, excellent day for birthdays. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Keenan. Thank you for that. Yeah, I did not expect that, but thank you. Yeah. Okay, so folks, this has been another excellent Exorcist Minute. I've been Lester Ryan Clark. You can reach me on all the socials as Lester Ryan Clark.
And I've been Keenan Diaz, and you can find me on Instagram and Letterboxd as Howdy Keenan.
Yeah, we got our listener group, Compelling Conversations. Go check that out and request to join. We'll let you in here with us. Thank you so much to everyone who has shared the show by word of mouth or on social media, and a big thank you to everyone who has given us a 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you listen to the show. And hey, if you want to give me a birthday present, that would be a really swell birthday present, is give our show a 5-star rating. That would be great. We really appreciate you guys listening and letting other people know. That's going to help our podcast grow and find more cool people like you. All right, Keenan, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I am, Lester.
Folks, until next time, the power of Jung compels you. I give it 10 out of 10. Yeah. It's Uncle Tito. She's like, yeah, it's very good.
It's very good.
Her head, it's, I'm not going to say it. You're waiting for me to say it. I'm not going to say it.
It's a dummy. You can see the strings.
Yeah. Well, this part right here, where she walks on her hands and her feet, but she is upside down.
Right. Different actor, lady. Not really the girl.
So, Frankenstein, you're here too.